Hello there. Caught myself watching at the other screen there for a minute. So, welcome. The clock was at zero. Was there zero for a while? I was distracted looking at the chat. Welcome. Today, again, like I said, we're going to take it a little bit further this week. We're going to look at the actual physical robotics. So I'm going to do things as we were going. So I'm going to show you my screen at the same time. So what we're going to do is just remind you that we've got the Thinking as a Coder website, which you can go to at digital.edu.je to follow on today. But to be honest, today we'll be doing mostly stuff on the Make Code website today. So feel free to follow along, even though I'm going to be using some bits and bobs here, some physical devices. The emulator will allow you to follow along for quite a bit of this, actually. So you might as well go along. So you can do that by going straight to makecode.microbit, but it's .org. Rather than .com, it's .org, or on the Thinking as a Coder website that you can get to with digital.edu.je, then you can click the Make Code link here as well. So that will help you to get to where we need to be today. And that's just going to be the Make Code website, as we can see here. But what I'm going to add in today, I've got a new one here, is I've got the new desk view. So I'm going to put my hand in there and you can see the new desk view here for a webcam that I've got on my desk, just pointing down. And we're going to be using this microbit here. So it keeps coming in and out of focus, but it just depends on where it is. So I might hold it and then it focuses. Then I'll put it down again and probably wave to bring it back into focus today. We'll be using a couple of devices, the sonar, the ultrasonic sensor, which is a distance sensor. I'll be explaining more about that later, and some servos here that we have. These are just things that go backwards and forwards. If I just get lots of little kind of devices to stick on top of them here. In fact, what I'll do is the full cam and desk, I think. There's that one there that I've got a view for, and I've got the full desk actually here, the full desk view there. And what we can have is lots of different devices, or lots of different attachments, these little arm attachments here, and they can go on to the servo just like that, and they move backwards and forwards depending on what we set it to. So it should be a little bit interesting today how we're going to use these devices with this going forward. Now, there are loads of different things that you can do with this. We can actually end up getting these kind of what they call hats, and you can access way more pins, because we were talking about the other day how the microbit, according to the numbering here, has 0, 1, 2, 3 volts and ground, but all the little bits in between are actually accessible if you plug it in to these areas. So there you can see how many more pins become available with these. But we're just going to play with the basic hat today. And if I wave, that should come into focus at some point. Let's hope so. Do that and then force it to refocus, or it will come back to me at some point. So we're going to have a little look at that today. I'm going to get started with some basic views on this. And like I said, you can use this microbit here that's virtual at the makecode.microbit.org site. So it's very useful to do that. And then you just create a new, in fact, let's go to it. Let's just have a look rather than talk about it. So you come to this view, then you can click New Project, which I did, and then I clicked on Test to do stuff. When you create a new project, which I'll do test 2 or new test, so I know which one I'm talking about. Should probably do live test or something like that. Then we get this kind of very basic view. And if I zoom in a little bit here, we get this on start and we get this forever loop. And depending on what we want, we can get going with that. And if I wanted to do what we did last week, if you weren't here, I'll just very briefly go through that. We did what we call Blink, which is like the hello world of Python here. So if I go to basic and say, show a heart, then show nothing afterwards, and that's just on start, so that would happen once. If I want it, that's why I just flashed up like that. If I want it to blink forever, we drag it to the forever here. I keep that in focus out of my head view, and we see we have this flashing heart. Now, what we should do, really, if this was a faster computer, faster processor, it would go backwards and forwards so fast, hi Gamer Brax, so fast that we wouldn't see it flash. So it is good to put in, as we said last week, to put in what we call a basic pause. in between, just to make sure that we will see pauses in between that. Now, when I've got this device that I have here, if I want to put it onto here, and I'm going to switch now to the dual view that I'm testing out now, the cam and the desk. There we go. Still a little bit out of focus. Hopefully it'll come back. If I do something here, it might start to refocus in on a second. So I'm relying on these webcams. Right, there we go. Focused in there. So we have the bit on the side here, and we have our area. To get this onto, or from the virtual to the physical, then we click on the download. And the first time you do that, it may ask you to sync the device up, but I've already got it synced. And you can see now we have the physical and the virtual doing the same thing. And if I quickly want to slow this down, I can go to 1 second, just press download, and it shouldn't take too long because it's not a long program. And now we have a much slower gap between each one. They're not always going to be perfectly in sync. It just depends on when that came down. So you can see now we have the physical and the virtual. So let's have a look at a few of these virtual kind of things that we can have a look at and where we're going to go. So what I'd show you here is some of the things I'd love to be able to do is replicate Robot Wars. It was a program when I was young that was fantastic, and it's not something we can create easily on small devices like these. They just simply don't have the power, but you can kind of get there. And ages ago, I decided that I would try and make one. So here's my version 1 in my house. Here's the micro bit, just out of focus of the, I'll just move it to the side there. We have the micro bit going. I need to see the play button, so I'm going to put it back again. And when I press play, I use the buttons on the micro bit there to move it up and down, and then I use the other one or another button using kind of motion to switch around like that. So I'm switching around, moving around, and we've got the first elements of some kind of robotics. So there we go, success. Got rid of those things. So we could do that. I adapted it into the Autobot Wars, so you can't quite hear the music on your side, but if you could hear the music, there would be some Street Fighter-esque music, and we were just using elastic bands, and whoever's destroyed first was the winner. So you weren't allowed to use glue, you weren't allowed to use anything substantial. The rules were elastic bands only, and how could you make yours the strongest device? And you can see there people playing around trying to battle each other. And we're going to have a little look at how you can make things like that today. Then I've got all these explainers similar to what we've got to do today, where we take you through how to make those things and the code to go with that. We're looking at that, something similar today. And then we could go into physical moving objects. So this was the car that we had using still just one microbit, moving around on its own, trying to attack things. Now, we can use better devices to try and hunt down things, and we've got the explanation of that. So today we're going to look at some code similar to what I'm going to show here to see what we can do going forward with the make code concept. So we're going to see what we can do. So let's have a look at the screen or the desk in its entirety here. So there's the desk, and the objects that we're going to look at are the microbit, which is currently powered and communicating with the computer via this cable. We've got a distance sensor, and the reason why it's got these two they're not sensors, two objects here is this is like a bat. If you think about a bat, it will send out a pulse, and it will bounce, a sonic pulse, and it will bounce off an object back down again, and the other one registers how long that journey takes. So we have this kind of trigger, as we call it, triggering the sound wave, and then we have the echo coming back like a bat, and how they sensor. So that's the distance sensor that we have here. We have the servo. This is actually a continuous servo. This one goes round and around and around, but the servos we're going to use today are just 180 degrees backwards and forwards. And that's about it today, but you can make some exciting things. So you can make these kind of grabbers that come in and out. I'm just going to try and move my microphone just away here so I can use both hands. There we go. So you've got these grabbers with a servo, with just one servo and a bit of cog work here. You can come backwards and forwards backwards and forwards. And I 3D print, laser print, or laser cut to be more precise, these objects, and both of those were controlled by the one servo. So you can start making robotic arms and grippers for these objects. I have a kind of pre-built Robot Wars one. I'm going to show you how we make that, but let's get started and have a look what we can do. We can go all the way, and this is the base of a robotic walker that we have using 2 servos at the top to move the legs backwards and forwards, and some underneath or inside this area here to move the feet up and down. So you can have quite interesting objects made with 3D printing, with even cardboard and makerspace and things like that. So the whole object is, yes, we can go really difficult, but we can also go really easy. So I think you have to focus it up top, then leave it. There we go. Kind of getting the hang of how to refocus that now. We've also got other microcontrollers, like the original Raspberry Pi here. We've got the newer, that's the hat for this, but we've got the newer Raspberry Pi Pico that costs about £7, so it's not much, but this has some extra bits and bobs. But the bit that's in green also can do these kind of jobs that we have going on. So lots of exciting kind of technology. So let's see how we can use this device live with the code as well. So I'm going to switch to the desk cam, and so I'll move this here, switch to the desk cam and the code at the same time. And to bring that into focus on my fingers, and then bring it back out again. Hopefully, there we go. So let's make that do something. So I'm going to zoom out of my screen a little bit so we can see what we're doing. Now, what I might do, and we did something similar virtually last week with lights, is we decided to make something blink. So I said that we should do we had some ideas here. We could go through them and we could have a look at all these logical operators, different ideas that we had going through, from inputs to outputs, lots of different stuff going through. So what is it we wanted last time? And we wanted, in the advanced, I think we want pins, and we want digital pin. And what we're going to do is set it to either high or low, or 1 or 0 in this case. So I'm going to grab this and say digital pin right 0, and I'm actually going to change that to number 2, and I'll show you why I'm going to change that to number 2 in a second. Then we're going to have pause. And we're going to get to the kind of how we make these into robots in a second, just some very basic concepts here. So we have this off, then on, which is just 1. And I can probably, and you can see here with the zoom, I'll zoom in a little bit now here to that we can see that that's going to be blinking quite fast, the pin 2. So what I'm going to do is move that actually to maybe half a second, just so I can get that a little bit better. And then that will be more of a blink, as I can see here. Now, when we've got that, I'm going to download that to the device. I'm also going to, just on the start, clear the screen. So I'm just going to put a blank screen on there, like that, a blank screen. Then I'm going to download, and we should see this disappear when it's there. Now, if you don't like the disappearing kind of nature of what's going on here, what you could do to make sure that you know that your program has loaded, and this is a trick I use all the time, is I use an icon, but I change it each time. So here I've got this kind of t-shirt icon here, so I can press download, and I do that just to prove that the latest one has been updated. So again, fingers up, and then move it there, and hopefully that'll come back in focus. A second, focused. Focus. I'm going to have to try and get, there we go, get a camera there. But I do want to show you things up and down, so I need this auto-focusing camera. And so we have that there. Now, nothing's happening. Now, we remember, hopefully, we were talking last week about these LED lights, light-emitting diodes. And we remembered that the longest pin, and you can only just see that here, the longest one, which is this one, is the positive, and the shortest is the negative. So actually, if I put it between 3 volts and ground, which is this one and this one, it should just light up anyway, just like that. Now, if I put it to pin 2, and the reason why I chose pin 2 here, so it's not so far away, I can stretch these legs out. I don't really want to stretch them too far. Stretch these legs out, and it should blink Try to check I've got the longest one and the shortest one. There we go. And there we have our blink. So we can do this kind of electronics work quite straightforwardly without crocodile clips or without other things. Ideally, we'd be using a breadboard to do that, and we do our electronics with breadboards. And if you've used a breadboard before, they're quite useful. They're ways of placing objects like this LED light into them without having to stretch the legs as we did there. And if you wonder how these work, well, if you were to look behind one, and I have one handy here, like an old one that I've stripped the back off, what's under here, the legs at the side run up and down, and the bits in between left to right. Okay, so we'll come more about that at a different stage, but a breadboard's there, which is quite a useful thing to be able to use. So let's actually start to use something like our, I'm just going to deconstruct it from my other device here. I'm going to grab in my servo. So what I've done with this servo already is they come normally I'm just going to bring it into screen. They come normally just like this. And we've got the servo that's there. I've put this on a base so that I can just put it on the ground and make it stand up. And we put different types of kind of arms, depending on what we want to do, on the top of them, like so. And what I've done with this particular one here is I've just used some cable ties and cable tied it on. I haven't fixed it on. I like to be able to take mine on and off. I just cable tied this stick and stuck it on to here. So the object of this is we're going to try and make this move left to right. That's all we're going to do. In fact, what I'll do to make it look more obvious is I'll actually stick it on the device that we have here. Now, one of the things that we're going to do with this now is we're going to use a separate hat to make things easier, because getting these pins, we can use different types of what we call DuPont cables, which are these types of cables here to join everything up. But it can get a little finicky. So what I've bought, or what I have, are these hats that we were talking about before, so that things can just slot directly onto them without having to use crocodile clips or anything weird. So that can be really, really useful. So this is a particular type of hat that we have as well. And this one is just screwed onto the back of a microbit. So there's my microbit, like that, same one. And this goes directly on top of, and this enables us to use some pins and still access the buttons really easily. So I do love this little hat, but it's the same device, but really, really useful. So this time I'm going to switch it over, and I'm going to add the power that's in here. Now this has already got a program on it, so what I'm going to do here is just get rid of that, download it. It probably might need to pair, but it's already got this one, so it's okay. I was using it earlier. So there we go, we've got our device on it. What I'm also going to do with this one is add some extra power to it, because it's got this bit at the top separately, because we might need more power for other devices. Not necessarily normally, just it's good to have. So there's my device, just slightly out of screen. In fact, what I'm going to do is just move that slightly over there so I can see it a little bit better. There we go. It's just at the range of the cable without pulling it out. So we have that, and we have our servo. And what I'm going to do is grab my servo with these pins that I have here, and they're all different colors. And we have the brown, which is negative, the red, which is positive, and the signal cable, which is how we control the device. And thankfully for us, the ways that these breadboards or these pins are laid out is they fit exactly the black, which is the ground at the top, the red, which is the power, and we're putting this servo on 0, pin 0. So that's all I've done. Plug that in, let's stand that up, and let's try and get this to move. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the code on the left-hand side here, and we're going to see if we can make this move left and right. Now, like with Python, what we can do is, and I'm going to do this forever actually, I'm going to grab a forever in because I'm going to need that later on. So I'm just going to drag, not that one up, but this one. Come on, let's grab down the screen. It's not liking me. Let me just zoom straight out of that. There we go. Grab a forever in as well. There we go. I'll zoom back in so we can see things a little bit more clearly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to extensions here, because like Python, we can use libraries to make things a bit better, make things work more easily. So what I'm going to have a look at is how we can make this work with a different library. So if you are there, you can still do this, even though you might not be actually able to plug it in and test it particularly. But what we might do is just grab the extension that's just here at the bottom. And there are lots of things that you can buy, that you can download. And if I look at the screen just on its own, you can see here that there is data loggers, radio, that there's a servo one there. You can do different audio recordings. There's lots of different things, as well as buying these robots that can move around. I've got one myself, really nice. Also looking at all these other things that you can buy. So it's a good place to look to see if you want to buy stuff, what the best stuff is to buy, because we've got these libraries. We're going to grab the servo right now, because we're dealing with servo. Then I'm going to switch back to the screen and desk mode here. And we're going to try and make this work now. And you can see, because we downloaded the library, there's now a new servo area there that wasn't there before, but is now. So we're going to click on that, and it's just going to say set servo to angle. So forever, I'm going to set, it was on 0. We looked at it before. It was on the 0 pin that we looked at before. You can see by doing that, it's got this picture of a servo now. So you're able to test this virtually, which is lovely. And we can have a go at making this move around. So if we just did set it to 90 and downloaded, let's see what might happen. There you go, that's 90 degrees. That's all that will happen, because it was at 90 degrees. Now, it's at this point you may say, well, if that's 90, I might want to pull that off slightly and just move it so it's exactly 90. And that's how I kind of recalibrate or test it. Next, I wanted it to kind of move backwards and forwards. So I'm going to use the basic tool at the top here. Let's move this off to the side. There we go. And I'm going to grab the pause as well. I'm going to drag that in there. And I'm going to talk about this in a second. Then I'm going to duplicate or go and grab another one in. And I'm going to set this one now, instead of 90, I'm going to drag it to 0. And then I'm going to see the range. And then instead of 90, drag this up to 180. Now, if I press download for this, let's watch this device. Move my finger out the way, see what happens. It's downloading. Or is it downloading? No, I didn't press the button, I don't think. Let's have a look. Just need to pull it back. Oh, yes, sorry, I was pressing the wrong one there. Press the actual download button just off the screen. Oh, it was that way. It was that way. I knew it was in the way there. And it's not liking that. It's wobbling away. It's like, quite often, it's trying to go backwards and forwards here instantaneously. We didn't leave another pause afterwards. So let's duplicate that and download it again. This is why we test. This is what we do. So as a thinking as a coder kind of qualification, that's why we test. Oh, sometimes it misses the download as well. So let's click that. Trying it again. There we go. Now here, you can see that it's better, but it's still struggling. It's wiggling off the screen there. Love that. There you go. So you get motion. Okay. So why is it doing that? It's doing that because we're pausing for 100 milliseconds, which just isn't enough. So what we should do is drag it to maybe a second, and I don't care if it waits or hangs around when it's there. Then when I download, we have to do it. So this is the difference when we're dealing with these kind of things. We have to deal with the physical and the virtual here. So we have to think with the programming, but we have to say, no, we need to give it some time. And then that's just constantly going between those angles. And it looks calibrated a little bit off. These aren't the most expensive of servos. I think I've got the 0, but the 180 looks a bit too much. So I might just rack that back to maybe 171, download that. Let's see what happens. So I've got my 0. That seems better. I would actually still take a little bit off from that, maybe down to 165. So I'm just off the screen slightly there as I'm doing that. Just took it to 165 rather than 180. So for me, 180 degrees is equivalent to 165 when I'm actually inputting this on that table. Maybe a little bit more, but this is what we do. This is how we test. This is why we test. And this is very, very important stuff to remember and do. So it's all very well and good, as we say, doing the programming, but we must test when we're doing these things. Vitally, vitally important. So we've kind of got that, but it's a bit boring, if I'm being honest. Just because I know this will go backwards and forwards loads afterwards, I'm going to drag this out and just download it to reset it. There we go. It's now reset a little bit. As we've gone there, I'm going to drag that back this way. So what am I going to do this time? Well, this time, if I go back to the desk view, the reason you may have seen this one, is I had this just taped to the bottom. I don't like to glue things, I like to reuse. And the reason that I've done that is this is going to be my base of my turret. This is going to be the top of my turret, like that. So I've just kind of stuck it to the bottom. So this one's going to move side to side. And then this is going to be my destructive arm of doom. Here we go. So there we go. So now I have a turret that can go side to side like that and bash up and down. So that's effectively what I'm trying to create. So I know what's going to happen later on. So I'm actually just going to put this onto pin 1 that's there. I'm going to use all those pins that's on this one. Brilliant. So the top arm that just moved there, that's how you can test. When I was sticking it on, when I put this in, the top arm kind of moved a little bit, so I know that the top arm is now pin 1. So let's use what we can on the device here to see how we can get this working. So it's going to be easy. We've got the servos. I'm going to use a very easy one now, which is, I'm not going to use the forever. I'm going to use input, on button A press. And I'm going to use, grab another one of those, but I'm going to call it, it's going to hash out because I need to change it to B. And all I'm going to do is, when I press A, set the servo to 0 degrees. And when I press B, set that to 180. So, well, actually 160, didn't we? We said 165-ish, maybe a little bit more. And that's going to be my backwards and forwards. That was on pin 0, so that should be fine. That's hitting the ground right now, so I'm just going to reset that a little bit. There we go. So let's see when I download this, what will happen. Hopefully nothing other than me seeing the t-shirt, because when I press A or B, A, that's the 180, and B, so it's quite a way around. It's whacking all the way around there. So let's just do that from this side. I'm going to push it down because it's coming off a little bit. So let's push the A. It goes all the way around there. And B. So it's got a good wide-ranging arc. In fact, too much for me to deal with at the moment. So I'm just going to whack that up a little bit, narrow the range down, just so I can test it more easily. So giving it a much shorter range, so that when I'm testing stuff out here, it's not bashing me. There we go, downloaded. So now I'm just going from there, which is that one, to there. So much shorter range, much easier for me to deal with. In fact, I'm going to pick that up. And this is why I like to not screw anything down. I'm just going to move that over to this side, just so it's easier, so I can demo this for you in range. There you go. So that one to that one. That's it. Love it. Nice and easy to work with. The next thing is, well, I need it to go up and down, right? So I can just then use or duplicate one of these, and instead of button A, you can actually press them both down together. I could have used inputs like shake. There's loads of different things we can use here. We've got, move that all the way up there so I can see. We've got things like shake, logo up, down, turn right, left, right, if it gets an impact on it. So if you're using a robot car, as soon as someone bashes into you, like an automatic flinch and like reacts quickly to it. So we've got loads of stuff like that, loving those kind of ideas. So when A and B is pressed, I want it to go up and down this time. So I'm going to set pin 1 because I'm now on the servo at the top, and I'm going to move that, and you can see here on the virtual machine I've now got 2 servos to test, which is lovely. I'm going to use a pause at some point. Now remember what we said, it was about a second the last time we used it, so I'm going to duplicate that again. And I'm also do I need to wait a second? Yeah, I'm just going to stick it there just in case at the end to give it some time to do that. And then let's just give it a shorter range again to test it's working. Yeah, same as before. And then download that. So we should be able to control it left and right with the A and B button, because that's what we've got. So yeah, left and right. And then when I press them together, there we go, you can see it come up and down. So just that went really high, really far back first. So I'm just going to move that to about 84. Then I'm going to move that all the way down to 100 and something or other. So you could just take these up and play around with the numbers. They're not hard and fast. And so here we've got it. So let's see what that bash is looking like now. Yeah, much better. So click it. There you go. That's a perfect bash. If I turn it to the side, you can see here. There you go. Much better. Just for playing around. You can play around with the angle of that, play around with the numbers. But so what? All right. Yeah, I can use my controller to do it, but we want automatic battles, don't we? We really want to use artificial intelligence, computer, machine learning, automation, all those kind of things. So this is where this little device comes in, okay, the ultrasonic sensor. So it's going to produce an ultrasonic wave that's going to bounce off something and come back and hit it. When we were having to do this in science and having to do this properly, you would have to work out some calculation, which is the speed of sound, because it's sending out a sonic pulse. And then this sensor would send that out, hit the object, come back again. So whatever calculation you did, you had to divide by 2, because whatever the distance was being measured, it was the distance there and back. So we needed to halve it, because we'd counted that distance twice, on the way there, on the way back. So thankfully, guess what there is? There is an extension to help us out with this, like a library, like there is with Python. So we can click on extension, and we scroll down, and there's one called Sonar. See, the picture looks the same as that one. So we click on it, and we've now got these extra sonar. And the only thing that you do with a sonar, and I can move these controls out the way now, because we know what they do. The only thing the sonar does is we need to work out what distance that we have. So what we can do here, I'm going to drag this one in so we can see some different things. I've used a bit of laser cutting to just make a little stand here for this so I can put it on the table, but I'm just going to lay it down for the moment. There are 4 pins on there. Focus can't quite say it there. And the 4 pins are positive, a negative, and we call it trigger and echo. The sound out and the thing recording it for the distance. So we need to make sure when we click sonar, it has a very weird looking button that doesn't seem to fit anywhere there, and that's because we need to fit it into a certain area. And what I do is I go to variables, and we make a variable called distance. So this would be like anyone that's been following on the previous sessions, this is just making a variable. So I would say distance equals 0. Done. And here it's saying set distance to 0, but I'm going to drag this into that oval looking area to say, I want you to say the distance is whatever, and this is, I have to be very careful on here, there's some pin numbers. I need to put the positive, the negative and the positive, and the negative and positive. So I'm going to do that now. Can't quite see that, but you just have to trust me. Negative pin, positive pin. That's all good. And then the next thing to do is match up these colors with the back here. So I said there was one called trigger and one called echo. The trigger is orange. I'm going to stick that into the number 2. So orange is number 2 and orange is the trigger. So the trigger is number 2. and the one left over, echo, is the yellow wire, and the only number I have left on this particular board is the number 8. Okay, so I've stuck them in the right places. That's now sending a signal out at all times that's going out there, and that's well and good, but it's not telling me anything. So what I'm going to do forever is I'm going to show a number. And because we've now made a variable, I'm going to say show the distance, because we've got that now, which is this distance that the sonar is putting together for me. Lovely. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to put that, I'm going to download it. I'm not pressing any buttons, but the t-shirt should go away now, and it should show me a distance. Now at the moment, I'm just going to, let's just check everything's on. There we go. Did it live, and it was absolutely working fine. It just isn't right now. Let me have a little look. Say the number. Let me just check the wiring's correct at the back here. So I've got the positive on the positive. Yeah, that's fine. What I'm going to do is actually just put it on the positives so it lines up, just to make sure that that's there. That may have something to do with it. The negatives on the negative. The yellow. There we go. That's the error, right? We need to test. We need to work it out. I did change the pin to 2, but when I told you the pin was 8, I never changed it to pin 8. So let's download that. That's why I was saying 0, no measurement. And so now, let's put this down so we can see everything together. There we go. It's saying big numbers because it's scrolling. It's saying 82 because that's what's higher than it. Let me put my hand in front of it, and now it should go lower. Let's have a little look. So I'll stick my hand in. Still saying 95 here. Pin 8 for the echo. It's not liking that there. Let me just stick the power. There we go. Not liking that. Let's just have a look. The measurements are way off, absolutely way off. Let me just check out it the right way around. So echo was the yellow. Echo is the yellow, and that's going into pin 8. And we've got the other one going into pin 2. Look at, there we go. And again, what did I do wrong? Too quick, too fast. And this is why I like doing them live, so you can see that the errors happen and you have to think differently, go through that. The units were in milliseconds. That's how long the time was taking to get backwards and forwards. When we do that math calculation with the speed of time, or we can just click centimeters here, that will be a lot easier. We can click that, and now we should have it. So now when I stick it in front, there we go. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got a measurement tool. So the higher I move it down, or the smaller I move it down, there we go. I'll split that into the full desk view so we can see that. There we go. So you see in the desk view, hold it close, 0. We can get it to 0, I think. Can we get it to 0? Yeah, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll take my hand away. The nearest object is 16 centimeters away. It's just below the camera itself. That's how long, 15 centimeters. That's how far away the camera is from that screen. So, like I said, we're using that now. So why did I show you this one? Well, we could combine it as a kind of lookout tower for this device, couldn't we? We could say, actually, if some object gets close, behave in a certain way. So where we had on A/B test or anything like that, I could maybe have an if statement to activate one of these objects. So instead of A/B or manually doing it, I can then drag in the logic, if else, and I'm just going to drag it in here. There we go. And just move these around a little bit. I don't need to see these. In fact, what I'll do is I'll zoom out a little bit because we've all seen what that is now. And don't need to see too quickly. Move those physical objects to the side. And we need a logic operator. And what we're going to do here is say, drag this shape because it's the same as the other one in. And we're going to say if the distance, which is the variable that I have here, if the distance is less than, well, we know it's 15 centimeters, or what's it saying at the moment? I think it's just moved it outside of the camera. Let's move it under the camera because we kind of knew that that was about 15 centimeters, 16. Let's have a look. What's it saying now? About 14 centimeters away. So if it's less than I'll just give it an easy buffer. If it's less than 20, then I reckon do the servo to those angles, put a pause in the middle of those to do a sweep. So that's the servo that's doing left and right. And then, I've actually dragged them out of there, haven't I? Just undo those. Needed to duplicate rather than do anything. So let's duplicate that. Do a pause. Duplicate that one. So it's going left, then right. I'm going to do a pause. I'll do it slightly quicker actually, because I think 1 second is too much. And then after that, do the bash. Now, actually, I'm going to do the bash at the same time. So as it is sweeping left and right, it's also bashing. So it's trying to clear something out. It's trying to do like a sweeping motion. Let's see what that would do. If it's less than that, there we go. Let's just see what that does. We test it. We go for it. This is the culmination of it. There is my distance. Nothing's happening because it's quite far away, 14 centimeters. There we go. Sweep around. Let's put something in front of it. There you go. It's trying to do it. So it's trying to do this bash, this weird bash. It's kind of a weird angle for you to see there, but it was trying to do the side to side and a bash. It was like a downward karate chop moment is what it was doing there. And as soon as I move my hand away and put it under the camera, it doesn't do it. So we've got this automatic object. Hand goes under. There you go, it does the sweep. Wasn't the quickest in the world because it's doing the logic. And we have the basics here of our robotic sentry tower. Now you add, and I'll take the power out of this now, otherwise it will start going crazy. You add that to this robotic platform here, so you can see this is where the, where's my other microbit? My microbit slots in here on the side like that. And we've got motors that go backwards and forwards. I put a place at the front here for my distance sensor to go, so it can see if it's coming close to something, move away, and if it's too close, it can also try with the turret on the top to bash something left and right. That's the object of the game. So I really do kind of want to get people into a physical space to have a go with this, or as we've discussed a few times now, in this project, maybe we could do this as a kind of like weekly magazine or monthly magazine drop where you get some pieces. So I have, like I said, I have boxes with all of my stuff in, and I've got loads of these actually with loads of different compartments. And maybe you get the box on day one with a micro bit, then we start filling it up with all the other pieces. Obviously, you have to try and get a cost out of that, maybe get some sponsorship, who knows. The objective is to try and build something that effectively gets to this kind of stage. So if that kind of thing interests you to be able to make this kind of physical device, I can look for some sponsorship somewhere or get that, I'm sure. So this is a plea out there. If you see someone, send this video, this section of the video to someone you know that might sponsor this, or we'll have a little look at Digital Jersey ourselves, see if we can find someone who might want to sponsor something like this for different people. I think it's really exciting. I love robotics. I love the maker space. The chassis for this is 3D printed. I've got these walking ones that are 3D printed. Yes, you can buy stuff. If you don't, that doesn't excite you. You can buy these robotic things where the microbit slots into this part here. Really, really interesting stuff. So that's the end of the session, 45 minutes. One thing I will say to you all is if you are going to the Skill Show in Jersey on Thursday, Digital Jersey has a huge stand. We hopefully, we're fingers crossed actually, we're waiting for a delivery of an F1 racing strip that we can actually 3D design better F1 cars, tiny little robots. It's like a worldwide competition. We're hoping, with fingers crossed, it's supposed to arrive tomorrow, not giving us a lot of time to prep, but if not, we'll be doing some robotic stuff there. There'll be some 3D, so some VR, entertainment and excitement stuff, as well as showing you how you can use that in the workplace. And we'll be having lots of talks about digital careers from lots of different industries, some of the team, some people from other businesses. So if you are coming to the skill show with your school on Thursday, be sure to say hello, especially if you're one of the people that regularly comes and follows. It'd be lovely to see someone in person to just say hello. But yeah, what can I say? Love robotics. Keep going with some stuff like this. And in the meantime, maybe I'll try and find some sponsorship to try and do that. So what I will probably do here is on the Make Code or Thinking as a Coder website, I might have a sign up for your parents to put details into where to send stuff, because obviously I can't deal with the children directly. So it may well be we talk with the schools and leave the schools with the packages for you. We'll think of a way of doing that. But I really want to get you into doing this kind of robotic technology. I absolutely love it. And it's what keeps me excited with technology. And we do actually use it for full. I'm just going to make sure I get the right one on there. The Coders Intro. There we go. We'll make sure that we get those things to you, but I love it. I've got all these pieces. These are robotics, the Arduino, kind of like called grown-up robotics, because it talks to the internet, and we put them into buildings. Loads of exciting stuff. So thank you again for those people that are constantly watching, especially for the people that say hello. Make sure if you haven't, you've liked and subscribed. And again, hopefully I'll see some of you at the skill show on Thursday. If not, Tuesday is not a bank holiday next week, so I will be doing another session here. We'll try and get more experimental with this technology. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.